Hello and welcome to today's episode of Authentic Achievements, where it's my very great privilege to be joined by the fabulous Dr. Hilary Cauthen. Dr. Hilary, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. And I know we can really get stuck in, but before we do, let me share with the people listening and watching a little bit more about you. So Dr. Hilary is based in Austin, Texas, and is a clinical sports psychologist and former Division I track athlete. She earned her doctorate in clinical psychology from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. And Dr. Cauthen founded Texas Optical Performance and Psychological Services, which now includes 6 providers serving athletes, parents, and organizations. She's worked with Austin FC and the San Antonio Spurs, creating mental wellness programs. Dr. Cauthen co-developed a curriculum for schools and an analytics company aiding pro teams. President-elect of AASP, she combats mental health stigma through her book, Hello Trauma, Our Invisible Teammate, and podcast Highs and Lows of X and O's. I love it. I mean, what a journey. And there's so many bits I would love to get into, but could you start by perhaps bringing it to life for us? Like, what got you here?
Yeah, I think being a very competitive youth athlete into knowing like what sport was for me, how beautiful it was and how difficult it was. And, there was a moment when I was 14 that winning wasn't fun, which sounds so silly, but the pressure of winning and maintaining that and, then getting an injury, I was like, oh my gosh, I want someone to talk to. And I didn't want to go to a counselor. And the irony is my mom is a counselor. And I was like, no, I need someone who just gets my competitive mind, who understands that journey a little bit differently in the high performance mindset. And so I knew I wanted to be that for athletes. And that was at 14. And I sparked my undergraduate studies in that and carved my educational pathways to just kind of have this whole continuum of care. Because what I also found is I love how you can have mental health be, impacted by exercise and sport as well. And so there's this dichotomy that athletes need focus on mental health, but then also our everyday humans who are sedentary and living their life, exercise helps them as well. So I was like, I can help a range of people on this continuum, but really specialize in sport and exercise psychology, and especially mental illness and mental health within the athletic and high performance kind of population.
Oh, wow. I love that because we can be so hard on ourselves, can't we? And particularly I think when you are in that high performance athletes, I hear a lot of talk about, you win it in here before you win it out there. Mm-hmm. And that additional pressure that you must pile on to what you're telling yourself, and the voice in your head must be overwhelming at times.
Yeah, I mean, we're our own worst critic, right? Like, and when you're in a sport itself, which especially at certain levels, it's entertainment, it's their job, it's their livelihood, and then you're on full display, and they're all critical of you, and you're critical, and then your livelihood revolves in it, your self-esteem and your self-worth, and so it's really complicated, and yeah, we are not nice to ourselves at all.
Oh, we're not. I often say, to bearing in mind that the only person guaranteed to always be with us is us. You'd think we'd work harder at building a nice relationship with ourselves, because wherever we go, don't we?
Yeah, right.
Can't outrun ourselves, much as I've tried over the years. I can be honest. And so we have to find that psychological safe space to create that positive relationship with ourselves, which is. Would I be right in thinking that's what you're helping with? You're helping people to have that safe space and to have the tools within which to start to make that journey towards a better self-relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a beautiful kind of dynamic that I really believe in, is kind of creating this culture of care for a culture of athletes and for champions. And if you're coming in individually, I think it's a lot easier, right? So it's a safe space, it's trusted, it's me and you building that relationship and allowing and teaching the athletes on how to be vulnerable and kind of taking off the mask and being what I say, treating the person within the player and letting the person shine through. And then there's that shift where when I'm working with organizations or teams, helping them create that culture, helping them understand that, care does not mean weakness. Talking about mental health or emotions or feelings is not going to make them play bad. It's actually going to make them better. And so how do we show this? The human aspect of sport is so essential. And part of that is creating that space where athletes can thrive in it when they feel seen and heard.
Oh, I love that. Because actually we have often badged emotions or mental health or anything like that as a sign of weakness. And actually it takes real strength to admit it, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I need to do something different, because you feel very vulnerable putting that out there and going, I know I'm supposed to be able to do all of this, but actually I don't feel like I'm pulling on all cylinders. So I think it takes a real level of courage. And I think that's part of the dialogue we're trying to change, isn't it? Which is actually, it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. Because if not, you're just going to bottle it up, and it is going to cause problems somewhere else. Because it'll manifest somewhere else, won't it? The body has an amazing way of stopping us if we're not listening.
Absolutely.
Lessons. Yeah. It's like, hello, you will take heed. Do you find that happens a lot, with the people that you're dealing with?
Yeah, I think, those somatic signs of emotional distress show up. And, with athletes, I'm like, if you're not taking care of the emotional piece, like, you could be at risk for injury, right? Your burnout, your physical exhaustion, you're manifesting, like, does your stomach hurt? Like, what's going on? And then just the irritability and things of that nature, of just how we change the presentation of who we are when we're hiding what's really going on. And so, I think sport's a funny thing, because exercise is a healthy coping mechanism for people, right? We say, hey, if you're not feeling so good, if you're depressed, like anxious, get out and move your body. But my athletes, they're like, I move my body every day and I'm still sad. So that's not working. And that's when I'm like, yeah, let's figure it out, because their endorphins are not the same when you're constantly at a high level of competing. And so to your point, like, yeah, we got to train it differently, and we got to teach them on how to, utilize different coping skills.
I love that. And a lot of it is really, it is about giving people different strategies, isn't it? Different ways, so that actually the more they've got, the more they can dip into their toolkit when one isn't working and go, that's not for today. Let's try a different one, because they don't all work every day, do they? It will be on the, I often find it's the right one at the right time. So, somebody will ask you a question, killer question, and you're like, oh, that's a good one. That's taken me to a brand new space that I wouldn't have thought of. And yet on another day, that might have just been, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
I think it kind of really plays in, doesn't it, to where you are in the moment and what's going to work for you.
Absolutely.
So what inspired you to write Hello Trauma? I love that. Hello Trauma, Invisible Teammate. I mean, what an amazing title. What inspired you to write that book and then create the podcast?
Yeah, I'd always had this vision. I'd write a book. I did not know it was going to be that book. I thought it'd be kind of very traditional, like, oh, this winning mindset, of high performers or something, and teach them skills. But, in 2018, I was really challenged to do a TEDx talk. And that's the first time I'd been in the field for about 10 years at that point, and was going to speak my truth and my voice to the field and the public who would listen. And I did it on the toxic culture of sport, on athletes' mental health, which was very it's bold to go out and speak about that, right? Because I love sport and I never want to give the message that I don't, but there is a darker side to it. And I have always been one to listen to the things that are said behind closed doors and in the shadows. And I'm like, well, let's just do something about this. Let's boldly say what's happening and make some change. And so I did that. And from that, it inspired me. I'd been in different pro organizations and collegiate organizations, and just listening to my athletes and watching what was existing over those from 2018 till 2022, those 4 years exploring stuff. And I was sitting in a conference, and we always go around like, what's your goals? And I was like, I'm going to write a book. I don't know what made me say it in that moment, but I was like, I'm going to write a book. And a month later, I worked with a team and explored this process. And I knew that this was what I needed to speak about. I knew trauma was becoming very popular. We had experienced COVID in different ways. Our athletes experienced different things. And I really wanted to redefine and help people understand what trauma actually is and what exists in our body. And I use sport as a microcosm of society, of saying, hey, if we don't change, we're actually reinforcing trauma to exist in these environments, in this situation. And here's how we can be better. And so it's my baby. It's beautiful. I love it because the title is so fun, because it's kind of saying, to your point, trauma will go with you. It is your teammate, and it can be your best teammate, or it can really hurt you if you don't know how to work with it. And every chapter kind of welcomes you into this juxtaposition of like what the phases of what a victim of trauma would go through. Like hello gaslighting, hello minimization. And nobody wants to be like, oh, hey, to those things, but they're with you. And so a year later, I came back to that conference and I was like, here's my book. And I had it.
I love it. Sometimes we just get that real inspiration. And what I love is that you actually took that moment and shared it. Because I think that is the positive action, isn't it? That then makes you go, well, I've got to do it now.
Yeah.
I haven't told all these people, so I'm going to look really silly next year. Rock up. Yeah. How did you go with the book? Like, yeah, no.
But I came back and they were like, oh, you actually came back with a book in hand like a year later. I was like, I did it.
which is amazing. Because I think, it's finding that what is your truth to share with the world. And the TEDx experience, I did one as well. It's quite an experience, isn't it? It's quite a it's quite a moment. Well, lots of moments. I mean, because there's quite a build-up, isn't there, to the overall. And I think we do sometimes, we question our truth, and we question whether or not our truth is going to make a difference to anybody. And I remember when I did my own one, really panicking before I went on, going, well, yeah, what if it doesn't have any impact on anybody? Right. And then I realized that, like, if it just helps one person, just one person, then it's enough to be vulnerable and share your truth. And actually, if we could all just take that step of courage and share our vulnerability, we don't know who we're going to have a positive impact on, do we? We don't know who we're going to be able to connect with. And I also love that you've kind of changing the terminology. So in that whole hello trauma, hello gaslighting, hello all the things that we don't want to say hello to, and we definitely are going to go over here. Come on, but actually, by making it more lighthearted in the language you're using, it makes it more accessible, doesn't it? Less scary. You're able to view it from a different point of view in your mind, because you kind of really are painting that picture with those words of hello is something we look forward to. Trauma is something we don't. Yes. So, okay, I've got both of those in that flow. It must be a great way of bringing the story to life, because I think, the one thing that connects us all, irrelevant of age, race, gender, and culture, is we teach and we learn through stories. Can create that kind of narrative that people can connect with, then actually we're in a better place to be able to help them. And it feels like that's kind of really what you're pulling through with the book. But I'd love to see, how you are seeing that it is making a difference to athletes and organizations as they approach mental health.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love you talk about the story part, because I was so intentional in writing the book that the first 12 chapters start and end with a journal entry to emotionally evoke you into what you're about to experience and read about these chapters. Because some people, maybe they've never experienced trauma in the way that we've defined it publicly, in the very sexual assault or war, or things of that nature. And what I let them know is everybody experiences trauma. And someone in their life will experience it, even if they didn't personally experience it. So the story part's so true. And to your point, writing this, doing the TEDx, it was like, if one person could really own in and give feedback, and that's been a beautiful response. I'm so grateful and humble when I do get that feedback. And I've had athletes who've said, like, you finally spoke words that I couldn't put in. I couldn't make meaning of it. And you spoke the truth that I was feeling. And that was essential, because I gave them power to their voice. I gave them a meaning and an understanding. And they personally were like, yes. And then they're like, can you please show my coach this? So on an individual level, those that have read it have given me beautiful responses and feedback saying, I needed this. This was life-changing for me. You spoke a truth to help me understand and make meaning. And then at the organizational level, it's harder, right? It's harder to steer a ship that's been going a certain way for so long. And you're kind of coming in and saying, hey, we got to do this differently. And here's why. Some organizations, they get it. And they're super on board and they want to be educated. And those are like the newer ones that are forming, which is very rare, because a lot of organizations have been around for a long time. So I think that part we're still working on, the conversations around mental health. I've been a part of, encouraging these sport organizations around like creating positions, and creating jobs. And it's happening. It's been a shift since 2016 and really 2018. But it's not someone it's like one person for like 1,000 athletes, and no way can anyone work with all of those athletes, And so I think that it's still in the adolescent phase of actual job creation and full-time integration and full-time normalization of utilizing someone. I think we still have this conversation around mental health and mental illness being like behind closed doors, something's wrong with you. And I really try to come in and say, nothing's wrong with you. Everybody has mental health. It's like physical health. Mental illness is very different. That's like having a cold, the flu, norovirus, something of that nature. That's when we need to see a doctor at a different level to work on the clinical diagnoses. But mental health, we all have. So let's just have the conversation and educate and make everyone function better. So it's not only are having a hard conversation, but you're actually redefining and teaching people a different form of viewing these terminologies. So it's a large task, but there's beautiful people in the field that are doing it, that help with it. And we do see a shift, but we just need to keep spreading the word.
I love that. And it's about maintaining the debate, isn't it? About keeping the language going. I used to, many years ago when I was in corporate life, it used to make me smile when we send people away on a course and they'd come back and, nothing's changed. And I'm like, the course wasn't the cure for cancer. Have you spoken about it? Have you said, what did you expect to get from the course? What did you learn? What would you like to do differently? How regularly are you using the new dialect in your conversation? Or did you actually just send them on the course for a day and think that was it? Tick. And we don't need to move any further. And it feels, that was very much in kind of like leadership development, but it feels like we're doing the same thing globally about how we're approaching mental health and how we provide the right environment for people to be able to have good mental health and support when it's not at its best.
Right. Absolutely.
I think a large part of that is that debate, isn't it? Is making sure the conversations are being heard. And as you said, giving voice to people that didn't know how to voice it. One bit that seems to come out throughout your story is what you're doing is providing a voice for the people that can't find the words to have their own voice heard. Would that be fair?
Absolutely. And that's like so beautiful that I get to be able to have that privilege and that trust and that understanding to be able to do that and to speak their truth.
Yeah, I love that, because I think it's how we help, isn't it? It's how we make a better impact on the world around us, is helping people to find a way to be heard. Because I think at our base, we all want to be listened to, understood, and respected. And that doesn't mean that we can't ever disagree, but you disagree, you don't disrespect.
Absolutely.
Work on those bits, then actually things become much easier, don't they? So tell me about the podcast as well, because I love the highs and lows of X Knows.
It's stemmed, all these things are so related, right? When you have a passion, they kind of connect. So I had done a book event with a panel of previous athletes at professional level and coaches and where they were at now. And they were sharing their stories around kind of the experience of what sport and trauma had done with them and how they had hidden this invisible thing for a while and culturally why they had hidden it. It was all beautiful to kind of mark the book before I did a reading. And as I was doing that and listening to it, I was like, okay, like this could be a podcast, like this could be a thing. And I realized the importance of story shares and representation. And so I wanted to do things a little bit differently. So I wanted my guests to come in that had already been through this process and actually reached a high level and be able to share their stories and have people that are listening or watching be like, oh, I see myself in them, and how crazy I see myself in them because they're a 5-time Hall of Famer, or they won a Super Bowl, or they did X, Y, or Z and this amazing thing. But now they're listening. They're like, but I was also like that at 15 or 18. So it was a part of representation and the connection and the humanity aspect that I'm so about. I'm all about saying, hey, everyone's a human and they just are really good at this one thing. And here's what's going on with them. And then the second part, so every episode is 2 parts. The other part is me teaching kind of a mental cheat code from what the athlete had shared in their episode of, if they had learned this one thing, this is like what would make them successful. And I teach that like a 10-minute clip of like an exposure of them getting the work. And so they can actually see what sports psychology is. And, maybe they had no idea what it looked like or how it could be useful. And I'm giving them this nugget, and it's me giving back to the field, like educating people as well. Cause a lot of people, like, they don't show their work, and, they think psychologists are like behind a closed door. And so I'm kind of just normalizing every aspect. And it's like we're having coffee chats, and I'm just teaching you a little nugget that you can go be successful for. And it's been a beautiful, wonderful learning experience. And yeah, I'm excited that we've been going on about it.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that actually you're kind of sharing the story, and then you're sharing some actionable.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see yourself in that story, if you recognize some of those parts, here's how you can overcome it. Because I think we do only see people's like overnight success, but it never is an overnight success, is it?
Right.
There's been lots and lots of ups and downs, lots of traumas, lots of highs and lows. But because those bits get filtered out, I think we live in a compare and despair society, don't we? So we look at the seemingly perfect lives of everybody else on social media, and we look at the messy reality of our own and find ourselves lacking. Yeah. But the reality is that isn't how their whole life pans out.
Right.
In every life, a little rain must fall, isn't it? So I love that in the podcast, you're sharing some of those experiences and their lived experience to inspire others to see what they can achieve. But then you're giving them practical, actionable steps for in those moments, because often we do one without the other.
Right.
So it's like, I'm inspired, but I don't know what to do now.
Right. Or, hey, I relate that they struggled, but like they were still successful. And I'm like, okay, but they also said this is how you could actually be better and what they wish they had. And so, I think like we're not going to have the highlight reel that for recruiting tools where it's like everything looks great. We're actually saying, did you know they also did X, Y, or Z that was so difficult? Or even though I think it's beautiful because everyone explains their lows differently. And some people come in and their lows actually were like, I sat the bench for the first time. And some people would be like, yeah, but you were like on a professional team. They're like, but I sat the bench, and like, you don't know what that did to me. And so that in itself is like, you stop the comparison that one low is worse than the other. And so therefore it discredits it. It's like, no, it impacted them at a level, and let's explore that and let's make meaning of it. And then realize like, the impact we can have to make it better.
Yeah. I love that, because it is around that like reframing, isn't it? And that I was watching an unrelated program yesterday, but it was a drama about baseball, and the guy was saying that instead of a home run, he was going to hit a round, and the kid was like, ugh, like, why would you want to do that? And he said, one day you'll realize when it means as much to me to hit a rounder as it does a home run, the stress goes away, because actually whichever one of those I'm looking for is that's the one I'm aiming at. And I love that whole like little reframe of going, instead of it being, oh my goodness, I cannot do this because it'll be the end of the world, going, actually, that's what I'm aiming for. And that isn't what you achieved. You achieved the other. But I guess just decoupling yourself from the downside that you attach to something not going perfectly.
Right.
So I literally chat to all day with this. So many. You've shared some already, but if you could give advice to some young athletes who are struggling to balance the demands of sport with their mental health, what would it be?
Yeah, I think it's, I always say like, you have to build the person within the player. So be more than what you do. And so I tell the athletes, like, feel your feels, right? Like, you're going to feel emotions and feel them, but then take ownership and know you only feel an emotion for 90 seconds. And so we're doing ourselves a disservice if we keep running the loop in our head to make us just more sad or more angry. And so I'm always action oriented, right? Feel the emotion and then make meaning of like, okay, why am I really upset after this game? And how do I have control to make it better the next time? And so reflective practice. And I think the first step for any young athlete is just taking time to build awareness of their emotions and feeling it, and then figuring out how do I feel differently now? What can I do to get out of that? And then the other tip is like, do things outside of your sport, right? Have other things that make you feel whole and complete and balanced, and elevate those. If you're in band, if you like art, and if you love binge watching certain TV shows, like just have time to do some of these things, because it's completing a whole person. And that's the beautiful aspect, and that will make you a better athlete.
I love that. It really is like helping them be their whole self and bring their whole self to every situation. Dr. Hilary, if I could ask you one last thing before we get you to share with everybody how they get in touch with you. If you had to go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
To actually take the challenge to try to be successful earlier on. I had such big goals and I wanted to be so great, but I was really scared to fail. And I would say, just go for it, because you're not losing anything by just going for it. You actually have an opportunity to gain the success if you try. And a lot of us get stuck in doing just enough or doing enough not to fail. And it took me a while to be like, you know what, just go for it, and, then learn from it. And so I wish that I had the courage to actually push myself a little bit more to go for the things I wanted earlier on. That would have been cool.
That's great advice. It reminds me, I read a book the other day that was about chasing failure and wanting to find other people that wanted to chase failure with you, which sounds a little bit like, what on earth are you talking about?
Right.
But the beauty being, actually, if you chase the failure, you get the lesson, and the lesson is going to get you closer to the success.
Yeah.
So once you go, actually, I can't be successful without the failure, you now want the failure, you run at it because it's gonna get you there. And that it just seemed to connect with what you were just saying, is that we hold ourselves back, we make ourselves play small, and that's because we're fearful of failing. But actually, our greatest failure is not trying, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So, Dr. Hilary, if you could share with the audience, how can they get in touch with you, and who do you help?
Yeah. So pretty active on Instagram. So Dr. C Mindset is a great place to kind of just look up and see what I'm doing. We also have our website, which is a little tricky, but it's www.txopps.com. Easy to access there as well. And yeah, we help a range of athletes, a continuum, right? Youth athletes, collegiate athletes, professional athletes. And then the beautiful part is we do a lot of executives too, high performers. So even if you're like, oh, I'm not an athlete anymore, like if you are resonating, you're a high performer, which all of us are, because we're always performing in aspects of our life, and you just want someone to talk to who can think about things a little bit differently and help your mental health and well-being, like we're the best place to do that.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And obviously, we will make sure all of the details of how you can get in touch with Dr. Hilary are in the show notes below. So if you weren't able to write that down as fast enough, please have a look at the show notes below, and all of the details will be there. Dr. Hilary, thank you so very much for coming on and sharing your insight and your journey and your wisdom with us. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
And to everybody listening and watching, I hope you found it as insightful, inspiring, and action-orientated as I have. And until next time, take care.